talk about carjackings. Because around the country, there is a rise of carjackings in progressive enclaves. And even people like the Washington Post editorial board are beginning to fret. So the Washington Post editorial board, which has been pretty go lax on crime, racial disparities, the poor bad guys, they've now got an op-ed from the editorial board, not from an individual op-ed writer, but from the editorial board, the voice of the paper, the conscience of the Washington Post. As carjacking spike, police need to be able to chase vehicles again. When a robber pointed a gun at Stephanie Traub's forehead and demanded her purse and car keys, she didn't know a U.S. congressman had been carjacked at gunpoint an hour earlier. While many were focused on Representative Henry Cuellar on October 2nd, a Monday night, Ms. Traub was driving home from a pinball league. She parked a block from her home about a mile east of the U.S. Capitol. She had never feared for her safety before, but something felt off when she exited her vehicle and heard another car door slam nearby. Then the gun was in her face. Ms. Traub handed over her belongings. The gunman ran to her car and sped away. She called 911 and D.C. police arrived swiftly. Ms. Traub had an Apple device in her 2008 Honda SUV that enabled her to track it. She sat on her front stoop with her laptop and 3 D.C. police officers looking over her shoulder as she watched the carjacker's location around the city. "Aren't you going to go get him?" Ms. Traub asked. "We can't pursue," she recalls an officer saying. You should know last week in Washington, D.C., a teenager was shot and killed trying to carjack a federal security officer. That same 13-year-old boy last year as a 12-year-old boy was caught carjacking but was back out on the streets due to his age in Washington, D.C. The Messenger has this. Police in Washington, D.C. have released a few tips for motorists in the wake of several recent carjackings, including one that claimed the life of a 13-year-old boy. Notice, by the way, how the Messenger writes that first paragraph. The 13-year-old boy was the carjacker. You wouldn't know that. Absolutely absurd. Vigilance is the key to protecting yourself and your family while on the road, D.C. police claim. Always lock the car doors and keep the windows rolled up. Drive in the center lane, which complicates a carjacker's approach, forcing them to dodge cars in the other lanes. The police recommend driving with someone, never alone, especially at night. When you're coming to a stop, leave enough room to maneuver around other cars to get away. The department also cautions against stopping to help strangers having car troubles. The best thing to do is find the nearest phone and call the police who can help. Isn't that helpful? The chickens are coming home to roost in progressive policymaking. They'll never admit it. They'll want to treat the underlying problems. What is going on? Well, let me tell you what's going on here. Over the last several years, progressives got it in their head that because property owners have insurance for their property crimes are not really violence nor crimes. They're insurable events. Progressives decided that they could treat events involving property that was insured as if it wasn't a crime to abuse the property. So you want to break into a store and steal everything? Well, the store owners have insurance. You want to steal a car? Well, the car owner has insurance. You're not causing violence to the person, therefore there is no violence. Then they started talking about racial disparities. Well, more black kids get arrested for carjackings than white kids. Therefore, there's a racial disparity. Never mind, more black kids engage in carjackings than white kids. Then they decided, well, we got to treat the underlying problem. Why? Why are these children carjacking people? We must treat the underlying problems, not the broken homes. No. You can't say any moral judgment on that. Out of wedlock, baby. Nope, you can't talk about that. Dads in jail. Well, yes, we'll talk about them being in jail, but we won't talk about the dads abandoning the families and going to jail. No, you're not allowed to talk about any of that stuff. Just the policy failures the left wants to talk about. God forbid we talk about the underlying collapse of the family, particularly in the black community. Nope, you're not allowed to talk about that because one, you're white, and two, shut up. And then they decided to save the children. It's always about saving the children. I've told y'all before, I was on the city council and we had a man on city council, Reverend Charles Jones, and everything was about the future for the children. He was an old Southern preacher, and we gotta do this for the children. We gotta save the children. We gotta fix our county and community for the children. We gotta do everything for the children. We gotta defund the police for the children because the police, they're abusing the children. We gotta save the children. In the South, the D is silent. They decided to save the children. The police needed to stop pursuing the vehicles. After all, it was insured property. So why pursue? So carjackings skyrocketed. The police aren't going to pursue you. You're safe in the car. If you're a bad guy, this is how progressive policy works. In the name of saving the children, we're going to tell the police, don't police. And so the carjackers realized that the law now allows their safety so long as they're in the car driving. You hold a gun to someone's face and tell them your life or your car, and they give you the car. The moment you get in and drive away in progressive parts of the nation, you're safe. You, the bad guy, are safe because the police aren't allowed to pursue. In Atlanta, Kesha Crime Wave Bottoms, the former mayor who went on to work for the Biden administration, sparked the crime wave after COVID when she told the police they couldn't chase either. You know what happened? You know what happened in Atlanta? Carjackings went up. Surprise! Not only did carjackings go up, but street racing at night went up. I got a buddy. He and his wife moved, their children were grown up, headed to college, so they downsized and they moved to a condo on Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. And his wife, they had left the comforts and quiet of West Paces, a well-to-do area of nice big houses and big lawns and quiet neighborhoods off once you get off West Paces Ferry. That road itself is a nightmare, but behind it, very quiet, very safe. They moved to a condo on Peachtree Street and were constantly woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning by drag racers down Peachtree Street because the mayor of Atlanta decided the police were not allowed to chase. So gangs would carjack cars and then race the cars down Peachtree Street, and the police could do nothing. Until the governor of the state of Georgia got the state police to come into the city, and they would do the car chases that the city police would not. And I think right now, even now in Atlanta, the city police are restricted in how they can pursue vehicles. Meanwhile, you go south of Atlanta. There's a county south of Atlanta. It's right north of me. In fact, if my house were about 150 more feet to the north, I would be in Monroe County. In Monroe County, Georgia, the county seat is called Forsyth, Georgia. Now, this is one of the weird things you've got to understand about Georgia. For those of you who know anything about the state, it's a very weird state where we have counties and cities that have the same names and they're never in the same location. So you have Forsyth County, Georgia, but Forsyth, Georgia is the county seat of Monroe County. You have Monroe, Georgia, but it's in a different part of the state. I'm in Bibb County, Georgia, and there's Bibb, Georgia, but Bibb, Georgia is not in Bibb County, Georgia. Bibb County, Georgia's county seat is Macon, which is not in Macon County. Macon County is near Douglas County and Douglas, Georgia are in two separate states. It's the weirdest freaking thing. They ran out of names, clearly. But in Forsyth, Georgia, which is not Forsyth County, but Forsyth, Georgia, which is Monroe County, which is not Monroe, Georgia, the police love to chase. I have been on the interstate more than once and had police chases go past me. I mean, they will chase anybody for any reason whatsoever. They love it. They love it. But in the city of Atlanta, you're not allowed to do it. And in Washington, D.C., you're not allowed to do it. And in Portland, Oregon, you're not allowed to do it. And in San Francisco, California, you're not allowed to do it. And you know what? Forsyth, Georgia, is different from all those places. Besides, it's not a big metropolis. It's a town. It's a small city. But they don't have carjackings there because the police will hunt you down. But in Washington, D.C., and New York, and Chicago, and all the big progressive enclaves of America, the mayors have all decided it's a victimless crime because it's an insurable event. Therefore, the police should not police. Therefore, that's where the crime is going up. And so what's going up? The insurance rates. What happens with the insurance rates? It becomes a tax on the middle class and the poor who have to have insurance on their vehicles and increasingly can't afford it because the good progressives, oftentimes non-white, typically black politicians who are catering to an African-American based population that they've convinced want progressive democratic policies, those same black citizens and the poor and the middle class and the lower middle class are having their prices go through the roof for insurance because the progressive politicians, many times from those same communities, decided the police were targeting too many young black men, so they would tell the police to cut it out. And surprise, what did the young black men, particularly those in gangs, do? Well, they started doing carjackings. By the way, for those of you who are outraged and claiming bringing race into this is offensive and how dare I, those are the numbers. That's the data. It shouldn't be about race. You're absolutely right. It should not be about race. But it is young black men in gangs who are disproportionately engaging in the carjackings. And it is young black men in the police department who are not allowed to pursue them. The guys who made the right choices in life and became members of law enforcement aren't allowed to pursue the guys who made the bad choices in life and joined the gangs. And it's the progressive politicians who've put them in a position to allow the gangbangers to get off easy the moment they get in the car and drive away. You can't pursue them. And now it's gotten so bad, the Washington Post editorial board, not exactly a conservative institution, is saying, please, District of Columbia, please allow car chases by police. But even then, they want all sorts of restrictions that make it meaningless. Here's the thing. You want to stop carjackings? You let the residents start gunning down the would-be carjackers, or you let the police chase the carjackers and run them off the roads and cause wrecks, destroy the cars with the gangbangers in them, and you're going to stop it. When you drive up the risk of carjacking to the carjacker because of jail or fiery car crash when the police try to stop you, they stop carjacking. When you tell them the moment you get into the car and drive away, you will be unharmed, unfollowed, and unfazed, you drive up carjackings. So what do you want to do? The failures of progressive policies are predictable to everyone except the progressives who implement them.
When the world